What if a single, ordinary object held the power to rewrite your entire life? Imagine losing everything you hold dear in a single violent moment, and then, decades later, seeing a ghost from your past in the most unexpected place. This is a story about a father's undying hope, a daughter's forgotten history, and a chance encounter that proves some bonds can never truly be broken. It's a journey into the heart of loss and the incredible power of fate. Prepare yourself for a story you won't soon forget. Our story begins with two people living in the same city, but in entirely different worlds. Ethan Hayes is a celebrated Chicago architect, his name synonymous with success. He lives in a stunning brownstone in Lincoln Park with a beautiful wife and two wonderful children. To the outside world, he has it all. But beneath the surface, he is a man hollowed out by a grief that has shadowed him for over 2 decades. Miles away, in a cramped apartment in the Pilsen neighborhood, Amelia Reed fights her own daily battles. A single mother to her bright 10-year-old daughter, Grace, she works as a cleaner, taking the early morning L train into the city's gleaming business district. Her past is a blank page, her identity forged in the foster care system, with only a small, silver key pendant as a clue to who she once was. The scream dies in Ethan's throat before it can even form. He's back there again. The roaring, metallic clang of the train, the blur of the Illinois prairie through a dirty window, and the scent of rain and rust. A small hand is in his, so trusting, so warm. Then the sickening crunch of bone, the world turning upside down, and the sight of that small hand slipping away from his grasp. He jolts awake, the silk sheets of his king-sized bed twisted around him like a shroud. The digital clock on his nightstand glows. 4:30 a.m. Outside his window, the lights of Chicago twinkle, a city he helped build. But in the pre-dawn silence of his million-dollar home, Ethan Hayes is just a man haunted by the ghost of a 3-year-old girl. His wife Isabella stirs beside him, but doesn't wake. He carefully slips out of bed, the cold hardwood floor a shock to his system. He walks to the window, staring down at the quiet street, a prisoner in his perfect life. Amelia's alarm is a shrill, unforgiving sound at 4:30 a.m. It's a sound she both dreads and relies on. She silences it quickly, careful not to wake Grace, who is sleeping soundly in the other half of their small bedroom, a curtain separating their spaces. The air in the apartment is cool and smells faintly of the tamales a neighbour was cooking last night. She moves quietly through the dark, her routine a practiced, silent dance. She pulls on her worn work uniform, a simple navy blue polo and dark pants, and splashes cold water on her face. In the small, cracked mirror above the sink, she sees the faint purple smudges of exhaustion under her eyes. She's not yet 30, but some mornings she feels ancient. Before leaving, she tiptoes to Grace's side, brushing a stray strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. This is why she does it. This small, perfect person is her entire world. She grabs her worn backpack, her lunch, and a thermos of cheap coffee before slipping out into the chilly, dark Chicago morning. The Pink Line L train rattles and groans, its sound a familiar soundtrack to Amelia's early mornings. She huddles in a corner, clutching her thermos for warmth, watching the city slowly come to life. The train carries her from the vibrant murals of Pilsen to the stark, glass and steel canyons of the Loop. Her destination is a new office building, a towering monument to corporate power where she started a cleaning job last month. It's a long commute, but the pay is better than her last gig. Every extra dollar is a dollar closer to a better life for Grace, maybe even a small apartment with separate bedrooms. She often daydreams on these rides, imagining a different life, one where she finished culinary school and became a chef, surrounded by the warm, delicious scents of a professional kitchen instead of the harsh, chemical smell of industrial cleaners. A life where she wasn't so completely, utterly alone. A life where she knew where she came from. Her earliest memories were not of a mother's hug or a father's laugh, but of the cold, impersonal halls of a state-run facility. She was found at Union Station, a lost toddler with no name and no past. A police officer gave her the last name Reed, and a social worker, tired and overworked, named her Amelia. The only thing she had that was truly hers was the small, silver key-shaped pendant on a simple cord around her neck. It was her anchor, the one tangible link to a life she couldn't remember. Throughout her years in the foster care system, bouncing from one temporary home to another, she protected that key with a fierce desperation. It was more than just jewellery. It was a promise, a silent testament that somewhere, at some point, someone had cared enough to place it around her neck. Someone had loved her. That belief was a tiny flame she had to keep from being extinguished by the harsh realities of her world. At 18, she aged out of the system. She was given a small stipend and a list of resources, then pushed out into the world. She enrolled in a community college culinary program, her passion for cooking a small rebellion against a childhood of bland, institutional food. For a while things felt hopeful. She loved the structure, the creativity, the feeling that she was finally building something for herself. It was there, in a crowded student lounge, smelling of stale coffee and textbooks, that she met Ryan. He was charming, confident, a business major with a clear plan for his life. He was everything she wasn't. He seemed fascinated by her independence and the small studio apartment she managed to rent. He called her a survivor, and for the first time, she felt seen, not as an orphan or a ward of the state, but as someone strong and desirable. It was an intoxicating feeling. Ryan's initial fascination quickly turned into convenience. His parents lived in the suburbs with curfews and expectations. Amelia's apartment became his downtown crash pad, a place to party with his friends without parental oversight. She told herself this was what a normal relationship was like. She cooked for him, cleaned up after his friends, and listened to his grand plans of making a fortune after graduation. She ignored the warning signs, the way he dismissed her culinary dreams as a cute hobby, the way he never introduced her to his family. She was so starved for affection, for the semblance of a family, that she willingly blinded herself to the truth. He wasn't building a life with her. He was just borrowing hers until something better came along. The illusion was fragile, but she clung to it with all her might, terrified of being alone again. The illusion shattered on a cold Tuesday morning. The 2 pink lines on the drugstore test felt like a verdict. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her. Sheer terror, followed by a sudden, fierce surge of protective joy. A baby, a family, someone who would be hers, truly and completely. When she told Ryan, his charming smile vanished. His face went pale. "This can't be happening," he muttered, pacing the tiny apartment. "I have plans, an internship, then an MBA. A baby ruins everything." His words were cold, clinical. He didn't ask how she felt. He didn't see the tiny miracle she saw. All he saw was an obstacle. "Look," he said, finally stopping to face her. "I know a place. It's clean, safe. I'll give you the money. We can just make this go away." The casual cruelty of his offer stole the air from her lungs. This wasn't a problem to be erased. This was her child. "No," Amelia said, her voice barely a whisper, but filled with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "I'm not making my baby go away." Ryan's face twisted in anger and disbelief. He called her naive, selfish, accused her of trying to trap him. The fight was ugly and short. Within an hour he had packed his few belongings into a duffel bag and was gone. The silence he left behind was deafening. She sank onto her worn-out couch, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. She was pregnant, alone, and barely scraping by. The terror returned, cold and sharp. But as she placed a hand on her still flat stomach, the fear was overshadowed by a powerful, unshakable resolve. She would do this. She would raise this child, and she would give them all the love and security she had never known. She and her baby would be a family, and they would be enough. Meanwhile, in his glass-walled office overlooking Millennium Park, Ethan stares at a framed photo on his desk. It's not of Isabella and their children, Leo and Sophia. It's an older, slightly faded picture of a different woman, Catherine, and a little girl, with bright, curious eyes and a head of blonde curls, Lily, his first wife, his first child. He closes his eyes, transported back to a simpler time, a time before the architecture firm, before the wealth, a time when he was a young carpenter, dust on his jeans and calluses on his hands. He and Catherine had grown up together, their love story as comfortable and familiar as the old neighbourhood they lived in. The day Lily was born was the day his world was flooded with colour. He remembered holding her for the first time, this impossibly tiny being, and feeling a love so profound it physically ached. He had promised her, and himself, that he would always keep her safe. He remembers her third birthday. The small apartment was filled with laughter, family, and the smell of Catherine's homemade cake. Lily, in a frilly pink dress, was the centre of their universe. She had his bright blue eyes and Catherine's gentle smile. She was a perfect, beautiful mix of the two people who adored her most. A few weeks later, on a sunny spring Saturday, he decided to give Catherine a break. "I'll take Lily to the state park," he'd announced. "We'll ride the train, feed the ducks. You just relax." Catherine had smiled, grateful for the respite. He remembers her dressing Lily in a little red jacket and carefully braiding her hair. They looked so happy, so unaware that their perfect world was about to be shattered into a million pieces. The memory is a knife twist in his gut, as sharp today as it was 25 years ago. It was the last time their family was whole. The metro train station was a symphony of chaos and excitement for a 3-year-old. Lily's eyes were wide, taking in the announcements echoing through the great hall, the hurried footsteps of travellers, the sheer scale of it all. As they waited for their train, a small kiosk caught her eye. It was filled with cheap sparkling jewellery. "Daddy, look!" she squealed, pointing a tiny finger at a display of silver pendants. Her gaze landed on a delicate, simple key. "I want the key! Please!" He couldn't resist her. He bought the pendant and a simple black cord. The shopkeeper put it around her neck, and Lily beamed, clutching the key as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. On the train, she didn't let it go, her small fingers tracing its shape. Seeing her that happy, that full of innocent joy, was the purest form of happiness Ethan had ever known. He had no idea he was buying a piece of evidence for a future tragedy. The day at the park was perfect. They ate hot dogs, rode the carousel, and Lily laughed until she hiccuped. On the train ride home, exhausted and happy, she fell asleep against his side, her little chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Her red jacket was a bright splash of colour in the fading afternoon light. Ethan felt a familiar urge for a cigarette. It was a bad habit, but he was young and foolish. He gently covered a sleeping Lily with his own jacket, thinking he'd just step into the vestibule, between cars for a few minutes. It was the single worst decision of his life. As he stood there, watching the landscape rush by, 3 rough-looking men entered the small space from the next car. Their eyes were hard, their movements aggressive. His stomach tightened. He knew instinctively that this was trouble. He tried to turn back to the main cabin, back to his daughter, but one of them blocked his way. "Got a light?" the leader sneered. It wasn't a question. It was a command. Ethan complied, hoping that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. They saw his wallet when he reached for his lighter. "Looks like you had a good day," the man said, his voice low and menacing. "Why don't you share some of that good fortune?" Ethan's mind raced. He could fight, but there were 3 of them. He could scream, but the roar of the train would drown him out. His only thought was of Lily, sleeping just a few feet away. He couldn't let them get to her. He started to hand over his wallet, but they weren't patient. The first punch came without warning, a blinding flash of pain that sent him staggering back against the wall. Adrenaline surged through him. He fought back, a desperate, wild fury fueled by the need to protect his child. But the odds were impossible. The blows rained down on him, and the world dissolved into a whirlwind of pain and darkness. He woke to the smell of antiseptic and the muted beeping of machines. A searing pain shot through his head as he tried to open his eyes. A nurse hurried to his side. "You're at St. Joseph's Hospital," she said gently. "You were found by the tracks. You're very lucky to be alive." But the words didn't register. Only one thought screamed through the fog of his concussion. "My daughter!" he rasped, his throat raw. "Lily. She was on the train. Where is she?" The nurse's kind expression faltered. She avoided his eyes. "The police are here. Your wife is on her way." That was all she would say, but it was enough. The terror that gripped him was colder and more painful than any of his physical injuries. When Catherine arrived, her face was a mask of pure agony. Her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. Her first words confirmed his worst fear. "Ethan!" she sobbed, her voice breaking. "They can't find her. Lily is gone." The days that followed were a blur of police interviews, news reports, and a suffocating, unbearable grief. They found the men who attacked him. They were career criminals who admitted to robbing and beating him, then throwing him from the train. But they swore they never saw a child. The police believed them. The theory was that Lily had woken up, found her father gone, and wandered off the train at the next stop. Or worse, that she had been taken by an opportunistic predator who saw an unattended child. Flyers with Lily's smiling face were plastered all over the city. The search went on for months, a torturous cycle of false leads and fading hope. The guilt was a physical weight on Ethan, crushing the very air from his lungs. He had left her alone. For a cigarette. This was his fault. It was a truth he would have to live with for the rest of his life. Their shared grief didn't bring Ethan and Catherine closer. It drove a wedge between them. The apartment, once filled with laughter, became a silent tomb of memories. Every toy, every little dress, was a painful reminder of what they had lost. Catherine couldn't look at him without her eyes filling with a silent, terrible accusation. And he couldn't blame her. He blamed himself more than she ever could. A year after Lily's disappearance, Catherine packed her bags. "I can't do this anymore, Ethan," she whispered, her voice devoid of emotion. "Every time I see you, I see that train." He didn't try to stop her. Left alone in the empty apartment, the silence became a roaring monster. He started drinking to quiet it. First, it was a beer after work. Soon it was a bottle of whiskey before noon. He lost his carpentry job. He sold their furniture. He was in a free fall, and he didn't care if he ever hit the bottom. One grey afternoon, stumbling out of a liquor store, he saw them. A group of children, maybe a dozen of them, being led in a neat line by a tired-looking woman. They were all dressed in identical, ill-fitting coats. He realised they were from the local orphanage, out for a walk. Their faces were sombre, their eyes holding a quiet sadness that seemed too old for their small frames. They were lost children, just like his Lily. But they were here. They were alive. Something inside him shifted. A tiny flicker of purpose in the vast darkness of his despair. He could drink himself to death, an anonymous casualty of his own failure. Or he could do something. He could honour Lily's memory not by destroying himself, but by building something. By helping the other lost children of the world. That day he went home and poured the last of his whiskey down the drain. The climb back would be long and hard, but for the first time in years he had a reason. Amelia arrives at the office building, the Hayes Tower, its name emblazoned in elegant steel letters above the entrance. She's always found it ironic, working in a building named after a man who probably couldn't even fathom her existence. She clocks in and heads to the janitorial closet in the basement. It's a small, windowless room that smells of bleach and lemon-scented polish. She changes into her work shoes, pulls her hair back under a cap, and grabs her cart. Her task is to clean the executive suites on the top floors before the executives themselves arrive. She actually prefers this part of her shift. The building is quiet, almost peaceful. It's just her, the hum of the ventilation system, and the rhythmic swish of her mop on the polished marble floors. It's a mindless, meditative task that allows her mind to wander. She thinks about Grace's upcoming science fair project and wonders if she can afford to buy her a new pair of sneakers. These are the small, constant worries that occupy her world. Ethan's new life was built on a foundation of relentless work. He put himself through night school, Earning a degree in architecture, he had a natural talent for it, a spatial awareness honed by his years in construction. He started his own firm with a small loan and a handful of clients. He worked 18-hour days, fueled by coffee and a burning need to succeed. His grief became his engine. For every dollar he made, a portion went to children's charities. It was his penance. His company grew exponentially. He became the man he is today, wealthy, respected, a pillar of the community. He met Isabella at a charity gala. She was smart, kind, and she saw the pain behind his carefully constructed facade. She didn't try to fix him. She simply loved him, scars and all. They built a beautiful life together, with their son Leo and daughter Sophia. He loved his family fiercely. But at night, in his dreams, he still searched for a little girl in a red jacket. This morning, the ghosts are particularly restless. Ethan couldn't go back to sleep after his nightmare. He showered, dressed, and decided to go to the office early. He needed the distraction of work, the comfort of numbers and blueprints. The city is still dark, as his driver navigates the empty streets. He arrives at the tower just before 6. The security guard, a man named George, greets him with a surprised but respectful nod. "Early start, Mr. Hayes?" Ethan just nods and heads for the elevator. When the doors open on the top floor, the only sounds are the soft hum of computers and a faint splashing noise coming from down the hall. He sees the cleaner, a young woman he doesn't recognize. She must be new. She's mopping the floor with her back to him, focused on her work. Her presence is a minor, unexpected detail in his highly structured morning. Amelia is humming a nursery rhyme Grace loves, lost in her own world. She mops her way down the expansive hallway, the marble floors gleaming under the recessed lighting. The executive offices up here are opulent, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking views of Lake Michigan. It feels like another planet compared to her small apartment. She hears the soft ding of the elevator and turns, surprised to see someone. It's the big boss, Mr. Hayes himself. She's only seen his picture on the company website. A jolt of nervousness goes through her. She quickly moves her yellow wet floor sign and her bucket to the side, trying to make herself as small and unobtrusive as possible. "Good morning, sir," she says, her voice quiet. He barely seems to notice her, his face looking tired and preoccupied. He just gives a curt nod as he walks past her toward his corner office, his expensive leather shoes making soft, authoritative clicks on the floor. Ethan walks into his office, the scent of the cleaning solution sharp in the air. He sets his briefcase down and looks out at the sunrise, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's a beautiful sight, but he feels nothing. He turns back to his desk and notices the cleaner has left her bucket partially in the doorway. It's a small annoyance. He's about to move it himself when she reappears, her face flushed with apology. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get that out of your way." She hurries forward and bends down to grab the handle of the mop bucket. As she does, her uniform collar shifts, and a simple silver object on a black cord swings forward, catching the first rays of the morning sun. It glints, a flash of brilliant light. A key, a small, elegant, silver key. The world around Ethan comes to a screeching halt. The air leaves his lungs. It can't be. Time seems to stretch and distort. The hum of the city fades into a dull roar in his ears. All he can see is that key. It's not just a similar design. It is the exact same one. He knows its delicate shape, the specific cut of its edges, the way the light hits it. He would know it anywhere. He bought it. He placed it round his daughter's neck. His heart is pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. This is impossible. It's a coincidence. There must be thousands of pendants like this in the world. But his gut, a part of him that has been frozen for 25 years, is screaming that this is real. The young woman straightens up, bucket in hand, and sees the look on his face. She looks confused, a little frightened by his intense, unblinking stare. Is everything all right, sir?" she asks, her voice hesitant. But Ethan can't speak. He can only stare at the key, and then for the first time, truly look at her face. He looks past the tired lines around her eyes and the worry etched on her brow, and he sees it. It's faint, but it's there. A small mole just above the left side of her upper lip. The same mole he has, the same mole Lily had. And her eyes, they aren't the bright, innocent blue of a toddler anymore. They are the blue of a woman who has seen too much of the world's harshness. But they are his eyes. He can see his own reflection in them. The necklace, he finally chokes out, his voice a hoarse whisper. Where did you get it? Amelia instinctively puts a hand to her chest, her fingers closing around the familiar, cool metal of the key. His question is so strange, so personal. I've always had it, she stammers, unnerved by his intensity. It's the only thing I have from before the foster system. She's not sure why she's telling her boss this, but his gaze is holding her captive. Before the foster system, Ethan repeats, taking a shaky step closer. What? What was your name before? Amelia frowns. It's a question no one has ever asked her. I don't know, she says honestly. They found me at Union Station when I was about 3. I didn't know my name. The officer who found me, he called me Lily at first, because he said I looked like a little flower. But the social worker officially named me Amelia. Lily. The name hits Ethan like a physical blow. He stumbles back, gripping his desk for support. Lily. She said Lily. The room is spinning. It's too much. It's too impossible. This young woman, his new cleaner, standing here in his office, is the little girl he lost on a train a lifetime ago. A sob escapes his lips, a raw, ragged sound of a quarter-century of grief finally breaking free. Amelia stares at him, her heart pounding with a confusing mix of fear and a dawning, unbelievable sense of wonder. The DNA test was a formality. In his heart, Ethan already knew. When the results came back, a 99.9% match, he simply nodded, the paper trembling in his hand. The reunion with Catherine was a storm of tears and emotion. She held Amelia, now her Lily again, and wept for the lost years, for the pain they had all endured. Seeing her daughter, alive and whole, was a miracle that began to heal the deep wounds in her soul. For Amelia, it was overwhelming. To suddenly have a history, a family, parents who had never stopped loving her, was a gift she never dared to dream of. She learned the story of her disappearance, not as a tale of abandonment, but as a tragic accident. The knowledge settled a profound peace in her heart. The key wasn't a token from someone who threw her away. It was a link to a father who had fought for her, and a family that had never given up hope. Ethan introduced Amelia and Grace to Isabella and their children. There was no jealousy, only an outpouring of love and acceptance. Isabella embraced Amelia as her own, overjoyed that the source of her husband's deepest pain had been transformed into his greatest joy. Grace was thrilled to suddenly have a grandfather, a grandmother, an uncle, and an aunt. The large, empty spaces in her and her mother's lives were suddenly filled with the warmth and noise of a big, loving family. Amelia quit her cleaning job. Ethan insisted. He set up a trust for her and Grace, ensuring they would never have to worry about money again. He also helped her enroll in a top culinary university to finally pursue her dream. She was no longer just a survivor, defined by her struggle. She was a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister. She was home. One evening, the entire newly blended family sat around the large dining table in Ethan's home. The air was filled with laughter and the delicious aroma of a meal Amelia had insisted on cooking for everyone. Grace was excitedly telling Leo about her science fair project, while Sophia showed Amelia a drawing she had made. Ethan watched them all, his heart so full he felt it might burst. He looked at Amelia, who caught his eye from across the table and gave him a small, radiant smile. All the years of guilt, the nightmares, the hollow ache in his soul, they were gone, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude and wonder. He had built skyscrapers that touched the clouds, but his greatest accomplishment was this, his family, whole again. The little silver key, now on a new shining chain, rested against Amelia's collarbone, no longer just a clue to a lost past, but a symbol of a future that was brighter than any of them could have ever imagined. The road ahead would have its own challenges. There were 25 years of memories to create, a lifetime of getting to know one another. Amelia had to navigate a world of wealth and privilege that was completely foreign to her, while Ethan learned to be a father again to a grown woman. Not the toddler of his memories, but they would face it all together. The foundation of their new relationship was built on the unbreakable bond forged on a train platform decades ago. The love that had endured separation, tragedy, and time itself. It was a testament to the fact that even when all seems lost, hope can survive. Sometimes it just takes a small, silver key to unlock a door you thought was sealed forever, revealing a happiness greater than you ever thought possible, a happiness that was worth the wait. A few months later, Amelia stood at the grand opening of her very own restaurant, the Silver Key. It was a small, elegant bistro that Ethan had helped her finance. Her dream, once a distant fantasy, hummed on a rattling train, was now a vibrant reality. Grace, wearing a pretty new dress, proudly served as the hostess for the evening, seating a room full of happy, chattering guests. Catherine and Isabella worked side by side, helping in the kitchen, laughing like old friends. Leo and Sophia were handing out menus. Ethan stood near the back, not as the powerful architect, but simply as a proud father and grandfather watching his family. He caught Amelia's eye and she raised a glass to him, her eyes shining with tears of joy. He had lost his daughter once, but in finding her, he had found so much more. He had found forgiveness for himself and a family more beautiful and complete than he could have ever designed. In the end, it wasn't the wealth or the success that healed Ethan's broken heart. It was the simple, miraculous return of his daughter. Amelia, once lost to the world, found not just her past but a future filled with love and opportunity. And little Grace, who had only ever known a life of struggle, was now surrounded by a family that adored her. Their story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most incredible things happen when we least expect them, in the most ordinary of places. It shows us that hope should never be abandoned, because you never know when a simple twist of fate or a glint of silver in the morning sun will lead you back home. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next one. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a coincidence that felt like it was meant to be?